So our next speaker is Dr. Anthony D'Souza. So Dr. Anthony D'Souza is also known as Tony. Yes, he has done his master's in clinical psychology from Bombay University. He did his doctorate and post-graduation from Wright State University, Dayton, OH. He was awarded as the Doctorate Class Award for Excellence in Practice of Clinical Psychology in the year 2006. For the last 25 years, he's been conducting seminars and retreats which are in integration of psychology and spirituality from an Eastern perspective. Yeah. Am I audible, sir?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll hand, yeah. Yeah, so we'll hand it over to Dr. D'Souza. Yes, sir, you may please start.
Okay. Welcome to all of you parents. This is my second session. Well, I have no knowledge whether you were there yesterday or not. So let me summarize because I'm going to build up on what I shared yesterday. First thing that I shared with you was essentially in terms of what does it mean, fear and compassion. And I said both are important, both are part of our lives, but they serve different purpose. Then I spoke about the evolution, neurological evolution of the human brain. And we are not yet fully human. In the sense, neurologically, we are in the adolescent phase. So on one hand, we are like animals who are governed by fear. On the other hand, we have the capacity to live mindfully, choicefully in love. That's something unique to human beings. I also shared how the childhood atmosphere is so vital for the child's growth. And I spoke about a study that was done in US, which has become famous as ACE study, Adverse Childhood Experiences, how it affects the growth of the child in a negative way, even into the adulthood. I also spoke about the call of parenthood. If God were to incarnate himself today, he would come in the form of parents because they represent God's love of caring, love, nurturing, at the same time giving freedom to allow each child to find his or her destination. I gave the example of the backyard chicken and hen with the chicks. Then I also spoke about the difference between joy and happiness. I spoke about the movie, The Bucket List. Have you found joy in your life? Has your life brought joy to others? Then I also spoke about relationship between parent and child. Besides the one up, one down relationship, which is secondary for me, where you impart knowledge, you use your experience, you use your skills. There is another one, person to person. Child is a person, you are a person, and you are equal, what I call heart connection, where love transfusion happens. So today we are going to talk about stress. Now, what is stress really? Y'all might have noticed stress is something that disturbs us, what we call distress. A parent experiences when he or she cannot cope with the pressures that he or she is experiencing as a person, in the responsibilities related with maybe as a wife, as a husband, dealing with the children, if children are special children, children who are gifted differently, All these, and the person feels overwhelmed in terms of coping with that. And then the pressures are too high, and the person feels helpless because the person does not get what you call it, does not get support from others, does not get the adequate support, needed support. There are lots of people who give advice, but in terms of support, they may not be consistent. Just a sec, I've lost my link. Just a sec. Okay. So that is important. So stress is something all of us experience. If you remember yesterday, I spoke about evolution. Animals have fear, which is necessary for their survival. Now, what happened? That is what is linked with stress. And let me explain that with an example. At Premanjali, we don't have dogs, but suppose I have a dog as a pet. An outside dog enters the compound. What will my dog feel? He will feel threatened. Then how will he cope with this threat? In usually 3 ways. I'm going to talk only mainly about 2. Fight, flight. He will run away from the other dog, or he will attack the other dog, fight or flight, or freeze. Okay? Now, these are 3 kind of responses when the animal experiences threat. And when they experience this threat, then fear comes in. What we spoke about yesterday, fear. And the fear activates the autonomic nervous system. And what does it do? It prepares the body to meet the threat. Whether to fight or flight. Heart rate increases, blood pressure increases, breathing rate increases, then eyes become dilated, focused. These are normal reaction an animal faces when he or she experiences threat. So there are autonomic nervous system has 2 branches, sympathetic and parasympathetic. So all this happens, blood pressure rising, heart rate increasing, breathing rate increasing, all that is part of sympathetic nervous system. What does it do? It prepares us physically to meet the threat. And this, you must remember, is very, very important for the animal to survive in the wild. Now, when the threat is gone, the animal has chased the other dog out or run away, the dog has run away, then the threat is gone. Then the parasympathetic nervous system takes over, heart rate decreases, breathing rate decreases, and eventually the animal returns to its normal state. And this works beautifully with animals. Now, for the animals, there's always threat to physical survival. Always to physical survival. You give galis to the dog, he'll still wag his tail. You see? It's always threat to you. Take a stick, yes, he will react. Survival is a basic instinct in animals. Okay. And we have also received. But you and I don't feel threatened physically. No one comes with a gun and tries to attack us regularly. You're sitting and listening to me. I'm sitting here. I'm not worried of someone coming and attacking me or hurting me. Though that can happen rarely. Okay? So, in other words, we should be stress-free. For the animals, there are threats, physical threat to physical survival. Our government has taken enough precautions military, Air Force, you know, Navy, police system, judiciary system, then all the laws and all the jail system, all that security, all that we have to minimize threat to physical survival, then we should be stress-free. How come we are so stressful? Now, this is something perhaps stress management courses don't give us. Our problem is not threat to physical survival. Our problem is connected with threat to ego survival. What is this ego? I don't have the time now, but briefly I want to tell you, it's the image that I hold about myself, what I think about myself, the way I see myself. And suppose I think I'm pretty or handsome and someone criticizes me, what happens? I feel hurt. I feel upset. Has the person physically attacked me? No. Now, what do you realize through this? The brain cannot make a distinction between threat to ego survival and threat to physical survival. When my ego survival is threatened, the brain reacts as if my physical survival is threatened. That's why Eastern spirituality focuses a lot on the ego. That image that we are, it's not a psychology ego. Image that we have created about ourselves right from our childhood. In fact, the genesis of this image right from childhood comes from fear, comes from insecurity, and I don't have the time to explore this whole concept of the ego. But essentially, all that I want to tell you is the image that I hold, which Eastern spirituality will say is Maya, it's an illusion. It exists only in the mind. That's why Eastern spirituality focuses on mind and the ego. Now, when the dog is chased, threat is gone, parasympathetic nervous system takes over. Now, suppose I insult somebody very badly, and then I go away. Will my hurt disappear? No. The whole video will be playing back. I'll be lying in bed, but it's going on, and not only for days, for months and years. Suppose I, as Anthony or Tony, has insulted someone during one of my programs, and then after 5 years, you get a circular. There's a program, and the speaker is Anthony D'Souza. Just the name is enough to trigger back that memory, negative memory that person had about me, and fear will come up. So the brain cannot distinguish between threat to physical survival and threat to ego survival. 1. 2, the mind maintains the threat. Mind keeps the record of the memories, and I told you about amygdala yesterday. Stores all our negative experiences as well as the positive. Both cause problems, but in a different way. We won't get into that. But that's where it is. So now mind maintains the threat. Suppose the person who has hurt me is a member of my family, is my spouse, is my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, whatever it is. And I have to live with this person day in and day out. So what happens? Every time the person talks, it triggers off that memory. Then sympathetic nervous system gets activated. And then heart rate increases, blood pressure increases, breathing rate increases. In other words, most of our illness is stress-related, stress-induced. I've seen this over the years. So when someone is suffering from certain chronic illness, I want to know the life history. I want to know the childhood experiences, ACEs. I would like to know, because what I've found is when I heal that, deal with the childhood experiences, because now there are quick ways of doing it. There's what we call brief therapy, quick ways. And the person changes. From a depressed person becomes a joyful person. So what am I doing? I'm healing that memory which gets activated regularly. So stress is not an issue. Chronic stress is an issue. Chronic stress that goes on, which means what happens when I'm under stress, other systems are not operating. Because it's an emergency situation, all energy is put on survival. So certain organs are not getting the regular nutrition. Certain systems are not getting the regular nutrition. And then one day someone gets a heart attack. Oh, he got a heart attack. It didn't start yesterday. It started long time ago. You know, our system is so good, so resilient, that it can cope with a lot of stress. And what happens when someone falls ill in one way or the other? It's the last straw that broke the camel's back. So what happens in the context of the child in terms of stress? ACE, adverse childhood experiences. The child is experiencing stress. Now, the child brain is growing. The child's systems are growing. Now, when there is stress, that growth stops. Growth stops. Then, after some time, you remedy, you take help, and so your relationship as husband and wife is much better. There is no violence. There is warmth. The brain is plastic. The plasticity of the brain, it will recover and make up and heal itself. It has that capacity. So the brain is such a, way as a wonderful organ in the sense is prone for health, not sickness. It's prone towards health. If I remove the obstacle, health will happen. Joy will happen. All that I need to do is remove those barriers that are there. So in other words, what am I saying to you in terms of what I said about the stress is we need to look at ourselves. Have I found joy in my life? Then I can say my life, joyful life, brings joy to my child, to my children. So that is the crucial part. When I told you yesterday about joy and happiness, by the way, happiness is very closely linked with the ego. And media is using it galore, enticing us all the time. So here we need to realize. So we have the fear, that is the sympathetic nervous system, and then we have the parasympathetic nervous system, which is love, which is growth. So you're either activating one or the other. So when you stop activating the fear, you start activating the growth part, parasympathetic nervous system, growth will happen, everything, brain will develop in a normal way, the systems will recover and develop in a normal way. So the question is, mindful, choiceful. Am I willing to become aware when fear activates within me? Am I willing to learn to cope with it, deal with it, and basically transcend it? Now, This was not what I had planned to. But this morning, when I was reflecting on what I want to share with you, I said, let me share this. Because, and I hope I'll be able to give the other things that I want to share with you today. How do I deal with my ego? Our biggest problem is our ego. I've worked with stress, because people have told us stress is part of life. Suffering is part of life. That's total fallacy. We do not need to suffer at all. All our suffering is coming from our ego. All. I can say that very confidently. I know you may not accept it. That's fine. Think about it. And I'll give you I'm going to define the difference between suffering and pain. We use these words interchangeably. Suffering is mental. I feel lonely. I feel depressed. I feel anxious. I feel worried. That's suffering. It's mental. It's in my mind. It's all connected with the ego. All connected with the ego. Pain is physical. I have a headache. I have a toothache. I have a stomachache. So please learn to distinguish between the two. Pain and suffering. Okay? Now, pain can lead to suffering and suffering can lead to pain. Stress is suffering. So I'm under stress. Now, due to stress, chronic stress, I develop acidity in my stomach. And then eventually that acidity could lead to ulcers. Now, ulcers are very painful. So, suffering leading to pain. Pain can lead to suffering. How? I'm getting a slight pain in my stomach. It's a persistent pain. So I go to the hospital and see a doctor. The doctor prescribes a number of tests. Then when the results come, he studies the results and he says, sorry, Tony, you have cancer of the stomach. Will my attitude, will my disposition be the same? No, now suffering will start. How will I manage? I have to do this. I have these plans. What about my family? What about my children? What about my spouse? You see, suffering can lead to pain. Pain can lead to suffering. All our suffering is connected with our ego. So if you learn to handle the ego, you have learned to handle stress. You have learned to handle suffering. Then you can say to yourself, I don't need to suffer. And when I suffer or when I'm under stress, I can find ways to quickly get out from that. Get out from. Mindful, when I'm aware. Choiceful, I choose. Then I experience love, freedom, joy within me. Now, how do I do that? Okay. In fact, to be honest with you, that's what what I give in my retreats to help people to free themselves to live suffering-free lives. Suffering-free life. Challenges plenty. And some of you as parents are going through, I feel for you because I know, because I meet parents, the challenges they are going through. Especially if they have children who are challenged in different ways, whether it is physically challenged or mentally challenged or both, or psychologically challenged. Psychologically challenged. So I know you are going through, but you don't have to go through all this. You see, no one tells us, they tell us how to cope with the suffering, but don't tell us that we don't need to suffer at all. They don't tell us the root cause of our suffering. The root cause of our suffering is the image that we have developed right from our childhood. And what are these images? What image is this? I feel I'm worthwhile. I feel I'm somebody because I got this degree. I got this position. I got this status. I got this relationship. I got money. I got power. I got position. I got all, you can go endlessly. So you have a number of beliefs, what I call ego beliefs. I'm worthwhile if, or rather, because I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. Your self-worth, your self-value is dependent on so many things. Or I'm worthwhile if my mother-in-law treats me nicely, or my father-in-law supports me, or my husband or my wife treats me in this way. No, you're worthwhile just as you are. You are wonderful, you're precious, you're beautiful, just as you are. You don't have to depend on anybody for your worth, for your worth value. So how do I? First thing that I am jumping, and I'll come back to other things. First thing that is, learn to love yourself. Learn to value yourself, not for what you have, not for what you do, but for who you are. One of the ways we destroy or we stop valuing ourselves because we compare. Comparison, our parents have used with us, and we also do it. Suppose you are the only person in the world. Only person in the world. Would you be tall or short? Would you be stout or thin? Would you be old or young? Would you be pretty or ugly? Would you be smart or dull? Neither. Because you're the only person in the world. And you're okay just as you are. How do we learn to value ourselves? Now, you're getting a lot. I was listening to the previous speaker, a lot of, I heard a little of it. Yesterday also, a lot of skills. They're wonderful. They're wonderful. But what is the foundation for those skills? You. You as a person. You as a person are valuable, precious, wonderful. You're complete, you're whole, just as you are. You're worthwhile just as you are. You're precious just as you are. Nothing needs to be added or deleted to you, from you. Now, so I'm moving to another. So loving yourself. 2, you need to separate. Yesterday I spoke about 2 persons. The child is a person, you are a person, you are equal. So you're precious just as you are. You're a wonderful person just as you are. Now, you have to separate the person and the behavior. You're wonderful just as you are. Your behavior may be right or wrong, good or bad, appropriate or inappropriate, depending on the context, depending on the culture, depending on the custom, depending on tradition, so many things. So learn to separate your person from your behavior. So people don't do that. People don't do that, I know. People say, for example, I'll give you an example. How do you separate? Suppose someone says to me, Tony, you are very lazy. Those you are statements are very dangerous because they give you that label. And that becomes your identity. Lazy means you are, means I am. I equal to lazy. No. So what do? I can't change people, but I can change the way I handle what people say. So I say to myself, no, I'm a wonderful person. I'm good, lovable, precious, wonderful, just as I am. Whoever, say my spouse, is talking about my behavior of getting up in the morning at 9 o'clock instead of 6 o'clock. So you separate the person and the behavior and look at the behavior. You can change your behavior, you can alter your behavior, you can discard your behavior, you can incorporate new behaviors. But you are a sacred. You as a person, you are sacred. Now, same thing with your child. Separate the person from the child's behavior. Behavior within a context, obviously. You're looking at it. Behavior. So that will help you in terms of handling your ego, separating the person and the behavior. Another way of handling the ego is, I'm giving you a quick, but you have to practice this, and this is what I do in my retreat. Suppose someone says to me, you are very lazy. This is another way of handling. So, or someone criticizes me, okay, criticize, and I feel hurt. Now, when I feel hurt, one of my ego beliefs, I'm worthwhile if I'm worthwhile because it's threatened. So I say to myself, no, I'm worthwhile just as I am. My worth, my value doesn't depend on whether what so-and-so thinks of me, what so-and-so says of me. I'm worthwhile just as I am. Now, when you begin to feel good, then you can look at what the other person said because you're feeling good. Is there some truth in what the person said? Is there some truth? Maybe 5%. Then take that 5%, 99 goes in the dustbin. So people are constantly giving us feedback. I can use them as opportunities for growth. Learning to feel good about myself, changing my behavior, improving my behavior. That's very important. So, learning to separate the person and the behavior, learning to handle criticism, negativity that comes from outside. When you say, I'm worthwhile just as I am. My worth does not depend on what my husband thinks of me, what my wife thinks of me. I'm worthwhile just as I am. Once I feel secure, then I can say, what made you say that? What made you say that? Then you look at it. Is there some truth in that? Pick it up. Rest goes into the dustbin. So no one can hurt us really. Now this is ideal, I know. But we can gradually move towards that. Step by step, taking baby steps towards freeing myself from the bondage of the ego. I cannot get rid of the ego. If someone tells you, you can get rid of your ego, please send me the message. So this person can help you to get rid of the ego. There's only one way of getting rid of the ego and you don't want it. You don't want it. And that is to lose your mind. To lose your mind. You don't want to lose your mind. But what happens is when I begin to value myself, I stop taking the ego, my name, my reputation seriously. I can even laugh at it. I can learn to laugh at myself. You see? This is important. Lots of my attachments come from this. A lot of them come from my ego. Because in fact, my security or ego comes from my attachments. So, when I'm feeling good about myself, what Eastern spirituality will call the true self, When I begin to feel good about myself, the true self, I can laugh at my ego. How much importance I've given to this, what others think of me, what others feel about me, or whether others do what I want or not. How much importance I have given to them. I'm worthwhile just as I am. Okay, there are a few other things that I want to say in terms of you as parent that will be connected with what I've shared. So you praise your child. People say you have to appreciate your child, praise your child. Now here again, psychologists will talk about two kinds of praises: appreciative praise and evaluative praise. Appreciative praise and evaluative praise. Let me explain each one to you. What is evaluative praise? Evaluative praises are what I said earlier about the person and behavior. You are so clever. You are so intelligent. You are so pretty. Now these are evaluative praise. Now when the child hears this puts a burden on the child to live up to that. Live up to that. It becomes a pressure for the child. So avoid evaluative praise. I know you and I were brought up with that. So it comes automatically. Reptilian brain works. What is appreciative praise? Appreciative praise is basically you describe what you see and how you feel about it. Let me give you an example that will help you to understand appreciative praise. You are returning from work and it was a lot of stress that you had to endure and you're tired. And suddenly, as you're nearing home, you realize, my God, as I enter the house, I have to, in the morning I was in a rush. I didn't wash the plates. I didn't wash the dishes. My kitchen is cluttered with all the dirty dishes and all. Oh God, now I'm exhausted, but I have to do all that. And as you enter your kitchen, suddenly you are shocked, pleasantly shocked. The kitchen is clean, absolutely clean. All the dishes are washed and plates are washed and put in their proper places. And you realize your teenager daughter has done this. Let's call her Priya. So how do you handle this? You say, I was returning home from a hard day's work and I was not looking forward to washing these dishes. And I said, my God, I have to do that. And suddenly I see everything clean, everything kept in their proper place. I feel so good to enter this kitchen and I feel so relaxed to see everything in its proper place. Thank you, Priya. So you describe what you see and how you feel about it, and you express your gratitude, and the child will draw his or her own conclusion about himself. This is appreciative praise. Here I suggest to you a book that I really, I enjoy. Several books of this. This is in 70s, but still relevant today, by Dr. Haim Ginott, Ginott, Dr. Haim Ginott. Then those parents whom he tutored, whom he rather conducted session, they wrote books. Okay, so Haim Ginott, the titles are Between Parent and Child, Between Teacher and Child, Between Parent and Teenager. These are the books. You will get it on, Amazon. But you also, these are since the 70s, if you go to Fort on the roadside, you might find some of them as, second-hand books. I pick up whenever I can, I pick up when I go there, pick up, keep. When parents have problem, I give it to them. I said, read this book. Very well done. Those books are very well done. How to communicate with your children. And here is something that I want to add. It's very important that right from childhood, your channel of communication with your child is intact. And then gradually the child will keep sharing certain things. Don't evaluate, don't judge. Just listen. Understand. You remember compassion? Understand with love what the child is going through. Don't punish the child because the child has been honest. But invite the child to explore. Suppose the child may be grown up, maybe 10 years old. Mommy, this is what I did. This is what happened in the class. And that your child shares. And you beat that child? No, you're not supposed to beat that child. Now, this is not useful. Instead of that, listen to what the child has said. So you are angry. Yes, I was very angry. Then, so what, you felt like beating her? Yes, not only I felt like I beat her. And how did you feel after beating her? After, to be honest, I felt a little bad. I felt bad. Okay. So what do you think you could learn from this? You're raising questions rather than giving ready-made answers. Let the child discover. Let the child discover about her own behavior and draw conclusion. You guide the child. Like a farmer guiding the sapling, you guide that child. So the child can discover himself, herself, and learn from his or her experience. He has already beaten the child. No point in, going over that. It has already happened. Now you can use this to help the child to grow. So keep that line of communication open.
Yeah, I'm so sorry to interrupt. We have more 5 minutes to go for. Then we have the question.
Oh, I've got 5 minutes. Yeah. Thank you.
5, yes. Sir.
I'm happy. Okay. I'm happy. I was looking at mine. I said 1 minute more. I've got 5 minutes more. Thank you. So that, and this is very important. Now here's another thing that I want to share in the next 5 minutes. Correction. Instead of correcting your child, give direction. Instead of correcting your child, give direction. Suppose a child after bath has put the wet towel on the bed where you sleep, and you are furious. And you say, how many times should I tell you not to keep the wet towel on the bed and I have to sleep that? And you don't care, and you go on giving a lecture. That is correcting. Instead, give direction. When you see the wet towel, Prashant, wet towel on the rack for drying. That's all. Wet towel on the rack for drying. Don't waste your energy giving a lecture. Give direction instead of correction. Lastly, let me share this story about a rabbi, so you have more questions, and then I can, this rabbi, there's a social gathering of the Jews, and this rabbi is there, and one person comes and says, Rabbi, do you remember me? Aren't you so-and-so, my teacher? You are my teacher in so-and-so grade. And the rabbi says, I don't remember. So what are you doing? You are my student? Wonderful. Wonderful. So nice to meet you. What are you doing now? I also have become a teacher. You're also a teacher? Oh, so wonderful to know that you're also a teacher. Now, you can't recall who I was? No, I don't. You remember in the 6th standard, something happened. So what happened? My friend had a new watch and I liked it very much. And he had kept it on the desk. And when you were not looking, I quietly stole it. And when he found his watch was missing, he came and complained to you. So what you did, you made us line up against the wall and asked us to close our eyes. And you examined the pockets. And then when you came to my pocket, you found the watch. And then you handed the watch to the owner. But you didn't say a word to me in terms of reprimand, correction, and that touched me so much. That affected me so much. And that's why I wanted to be like you, a teacher. Now, can you remember me? Can you remember me? He said, no, I can't. Because you had kept your eyes closed. I too had closed my eyes. I too closed my eyes. So I didn't know whose pocket I found the watch. Wonderful story about ways of correcting our children. Ways of. Now, I know I'm not applying it to your specific challenges as having children who are, who have different challenges, whether they are learning disabilities or in terms of physically or mentally challenged, different kinds of things. But you can try this and apply to your life, apply to your relationship. And that's what I would wish for you. So that's what I end. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tony, for a wonderful session. It was really a de-stressor for all of us, and I believe for all our participants as well. In these 45 minutes, it was very enlightening for us to actually understand the cause of stress, which is generating suffering, I would say, rather than pain, like you said, in most of our people's day-to-day routine. And it was actually an eye-opener for us to understand how do we separate our suffering from pain, because pain, which you rightly said, is physical and can be handled, but suffering is from inside. So to end a suffering, we should always understand the cause for it. And the cause, rightly said by you, was ego, which everybody has, but how to handle it is something which we need to learn. And learning, like you always said, can be from a smaller thing, can be from a small criticist comment coming to us, or from an appreciative, lots of beautiful words given by anybody around us. So yeah, it was really nice. To summarize, I would just want to say, yeah, like we heard from you, to deal with stress, we need to actually understand our self-worth. For me, I am a very valuable person, not only in my eyes, but I should see that way to everybody around me. So then when a person around me will say something, comment, I will just take the part which should be helping me to improvise my self-worth, rather than something which will take me down. So yeah, very rightly said by you, doctor. This is something which even we all would want to do, practice in our daily day-to-day routine. Also, like you said, a person has to separate a person's personality from its behavior, which is very much important. The behavior can be modified, but if I feel I am a very good person, I will always want to change up to the behavior of others. When it came to you telling about how do we handle, negativity which is coming from people around, if I am a person who knows that my mind, soul, and body is beautiful from inside, the negative part will automatically change into something positive from me, even if it is, a very negative comment. That is how we heard. Regarding our children and their difficulties, you rightly said it is easier to judge and, give them any punishment or ask them to modify, rather than it would be a little difficult to enlighten them to the right path and how the work can be done. So yeah, it was very appreciative, the two approaches explained to you by us. One was evaluative praise. This not only burdens the child, but definitely the parent's mind as well. Once I have an evaluative praise in my mind, I will always want my child to do much more better. That burden automatically passes maybe from my emotions or from the way I talk to him directly to the child. But when we use an appreciative praise or appreciative sentences, ke, oh, I am feeling wonderful. I am flabbergasted. The way you helped me today. This gives a positive vibe, a happiness to the child, and he definitely wants to do it better by himself. It develops an inner drive in the child to do much more better every day rather than we asking him about the same. So this was really very well explained by you, sir. I would just ask few questions which are asked by a few parents by us.
Sure.
So, yeah, one of the mother has asked us, how can a mother feel joy when the kid is special and she has many difficulties to cope up? And a special question is, what if it is that she is with her family, which is causing her stress?
Okay. Here, I would like to ask the person a few questions since we don't have that time. Just think of this. See, one is, how do I separate? How could I be joyful within while my child is suffering or whatever the child is going through? Now, just imagine you are suffering and because the child is suffering, will the child get well? Will the child improve? Will the quality of your service be better? So here is something we tend to, we tend to identify with those we love. Now, I know some of you will rebel because in our Indian context, we are connected with people, and that's why when you go to the airport, you're not 1-2 person coming to see you. My God, whole jingbang comes. Somehow they have to give some of them have there to give their attendance because we feel if you don't, the connection is being disrupted or affected. No. You see, you can't save a drowning person by drowning. You have to be on the safe platform to be able to throw a rope, throw a stick, because you don't know how to swim. Okay? If you can jump and save the person, wonderful, go ahead. But I don't know how to swim, but I love that person. So I will jump. Now you have, instead of one body, you have 2 bodies, 2 deaths. So we don't have the time to explain this. When you are the best person, you can offer the best service to the other. So separating yourself from your child is useful to offer the best service to the child. Practically, how you do it? Okay, that takes a lot. That requires a lot of spirituality and all that. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to the other questions. It's connected to the earlier one.
Yeah.
When we cannot control or change certain situations due to other people, then how do we de-stress ourselves? Which was very beautifully explained by you during the lecture. So yeah, it's relating to this.
See, there are certain things we cannot control. If my child is a special child, that's a reality. That's a reality. If this is a husband that I have, this is a wife that I have, that's a reality. Now, how do I make the best of this situation? And first thing, take care of myself. How do I take care of myself? There are things you cannot change. There are things you can change. And the wisdom is to know the difference. So there are people I know who come for counseling. They're trying to change things they cannot change. And they are stuck. And the more they try to change, more anxious they become, more stressed they become. So separate. What are the things you can change? What are the things you cannot change? But your worth, your value is not dependent on any of them. Since we have made our value dependent on them, that's why it leads to stress for us. Leads to stress. Now, easy for me to say all this, but in practice, it's very, very challenging. So the process that I introduce people to is a lifelong process of mindful living, choiceful living in freedom and joy, in love. That's the process I invite people to go through. Okay, next question.
Yes, sir. Next question is, why do parents of children with disabilities sometimes have suicidal tendency? What advice would you give to
Who
them?
has sweet? I didn't get that question. Please repeat it.
Why do parents of children with disabilities have suicidal tendencies?
Parents,
What advice?
parents have suicidal. You see, what is suicide?
Sorry.
When does a person feel suicidal? Feels trapped, cornered, and no way out from the situation, feels helpless and hopeless. Okay, this is it. So suicide becomes one little window to get out from this trap. So it's a way of coping, actually. Way of coping. I cannot cope with this, so this becomes an easy way out. Okay. Now, what does that imply? You're being overwhelmed with the situation. You need help. You need professional help to help you to guide. And taking professional help is no problem. I mean, there's no shame or anything. We all need. In fact, I have gone through therapy for 20 years. What I've discovered through this, I'm sharing with you. Through my own lived experience, I'm sharing with you. So seek help, seek guidance. And that is important. That is important. That you're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling helpless, you're feeling hopeless, you need help. That person needs help. Okay.
Thank you, sir. It was a wonderful session with you. Actually, I think today all the stresses would just go away in the whip of wind by your beautiful session.
But it's okay. Help you to
Yes,
handle
yes. Yes, yes. And we would always want to be as beautiful as you described us, like a butterfly, moving stress-free out of life. Thank you so much, sir. I would like to hand it over, to Dr. Veena to